Hey guys, back at you with another Season 4 discussion video. Joining me with this is Mir. What's going on, man?
Hey man, doing pretty good.
And before we get started with this video, I just want to say that we have been reading through all of you guys' comments on YouTube, and of course, I know that you guys aren't going to agree with everything that we say, but we just really want to get the conversation going, get the ball rolling. And you guys have left some really cool feedback, and overall, it's great. We're just waiting for Season 4, basically.
hmm Yeah, and at this point, like we just said, we appreciate all the comments, but I guess we should make a small disclaimer first. I've noticed some comments that were like, "Oh, you guys are crazy for thinking of buffing all the N tiers when there's like top tiers
Yeah.
that already have great N tiers." Of course, we don't mean that. Like we're first of all, all of our videos are part of a bigger discussion, right? Like all these discussion videos are part of a small series
Yeah.
in and of itself. So you have to look at all our suggestions kind of like in tandem with the other video. And yeah, of course, when we say buff anti-airs or whatever, we don't mean like on every character.
Yeah.
We mean on those that need it the most, like to bring it up to par to those that are not so, sorry, that they have these tools already. And I mean, in general, we want the game to be more neutral based, right? Like we don't like this robbery V-trigger meta that's kind of like playing the game forever. So
Which is the topic for today.
yeah, which is the topic for today, coincidentally.
We all want Street Fighter to be the best it can be, right? And we all have our own opinions and ideas. But I know some of these videos are long. There are some long discussion videos, but try your best to at least watch it all before you respond. That we're not wasting breath and starting debates that we're not even talking about in the first place or addressed in the video. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the main topic for today is, of course, V-triggers. So, I guess first let's talk about the V-trigger meta right now, because we are entering our third season with Arcade Edition. First off, V-triggers play one of the largest roles on if a character is really good or not, especially on the tier list. I don't know, that's what I think. I don't know about you, Mir, but...
No, it's definitely one of the most important factors to look at when you determine, if a character is good. Because of the added utility and comeback potential that they offer.
Right. Another thing too about this current meta is that it seems that install V-triggers are king right now, especially after that big scaling nerf, where when you combo into V-triggers, there's more scaling.
Yeah, exactly. And by install V-triggers, we mean those that give you either a passive buff or something that you can reuse multiple times once you have popped your V-trigger.
Right. So, when Arcade Edition basically introduced us to the second V-trigger for every character, and, I was kind of worried about that at first, because I'm like, man, that's going to be so hard to balance. Like, how are they going to convince us to use a V-trigger that's not Necalli's V-trigger 1, or Urian's V-trigger 1, and things like that. My mind was just going crazy. And, surprisingly, it didn't actually shake up the meta too much, I feel, somehow.
Except for certain characters.
Yeah, of course. But I was expecting chaos, like the game just launching again, kind of chaos. It's just really hard to balance when you have so many V triggers being added. But it didn't seem like it impacted too much, right? But there are many characters still use either the same V triggers they did, or they got replaced because they were forced to. But some characters like Colleen, for example, V-Trigger 2 is just so much better than V-Trigger 1. That she'll always use V-Trigger 2. Yeah. Ibuki is an example of a character that got her V-Trigger 1 annihilated. It got nerfed so bad that she had to move over to V-Trigger 2. She was forced to use it, right? Which is kind of funny, because I think to right now, fast forward, like if V-Trigger 1 was still the way it was before, I think Ibuki players would still use V-Trigger 2. But,
yeah, probably. I mean, one of the biggest nerfs to V-Trigger 1 was the fact that, it wasn't supposed to be such an unseeable mix-up as it was before, and then V-Trigger 2 just does the same thing.
V-Trigger 2 is like, yo. Upgrades. Yeah, it's funny. Of course, there are some great examples of characters that do use both V-Triggers, though. I think Rashid is a good example. We're seeing Rashid players use both for different matchups. Guile, even though Guile did have some balancing, because V-Trigger 2 was king at the beginning of Season 3.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
It was pretty crazy. And then they nerfed that so you can't go Sonic Boom into V-Trigger. But now I think there's Gao players that use both. Bison, I think, is an okay example. I see some Bison players use both, but I don't see Bison too much. And Mika is another kind of rare example where I kind of see Mika using both, but not too much. Mostly one.
Yeah. And I mean, and this is what we want to strive for, right? Like, we want both V-Triggers to be used. We want more variety and choice for players.
Yeah, absolutely. So that moves us over to our concerns right now with the V-Trigger system. And I think this is obvious, and it's just not enough variety, of course. We want all these characters in a perfect world to be able to use both V-Triggers for different matchups, of course, right? And like I said, some new and old V-Triggers need to be looked at again after all of this, right? Nash V-Trigger 2, for example, really needs to get looked at. Cammy V-Trigger 2, even Cammy needs to get looked at. Even though they did buff Cammy's V-Trigger 2 recently as well.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Xiaohai tried using it and just didn't go so well. So yeah.
It just seems that certain V-Triggers were clearly thought as matchup specific V-Trigger, but they're just are not that useful compared to the more generic V-Trigger. Like a good example is Laura's V-Trigger 2, which is a dodge parry kind of thing, or like all the parry V-Triggers. They're just not as useful as the other main V-Trigger choice.
Like we see some Karin V-Trigger 2, but I mean compared to her V-Trigger 1, it's just like wasn't much of a choice to begin with. Like I said,
they're not really powerful V-Triggers at all. So
Ryu, same thing. Birdie V-Trigger 2, not seeing that at all. I think MenRD tried it once and was like, screw this. Right?
I still think that was an accidental pick. Like,
oh, really? You do?
Yes,
no, he rematched with it, Mir. He rematched.
No, he changed it, didn't he?
No, man. Unless he's playing the long con, and he's like, I don't want people to think that I accidentally... No, we talked about this in the stream. He rematched with it, bro. Yeah.
Alright.
And of course, Ibuki, never using V-Trigger 1. Of course. Right? There's no use for it.
Yeah, no, especially after nerfs.
Yeah. So obviously, the way Capcom could fix this is to look at these V-Triggers that are not being used at all, right? They should really take a look at them. And, it doesn't matter what fighting game, man. If we look in the past, Street Fighter 4 is always going to have a more popular Ultra, and then they introduced the double Ultra system. There's going to be, people are going to pick better grooves, better isms. Street Fighter 3, they're going to pick the best critical art, right? Super art. So, like, we're always going to run into this situation. People are always going to pick the best, most efficient one. But, Capcom should at least attempt to add variety to it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Especially if we're really trying to push this esports thing, we want this to be as balanced as possible, right?
Right, exactly. And we live in a world where you can patch. It's not an arcade cabinet anymore.
Yes.
We live in a world where you can patch things, Another concern we have is the non-install V-Triggers. So we just mentioned at the beginning here that the install V-Triggers are king, and for a very good reason, because a lot of these characters have their V-Triggers become stronger if their normals are really good, and they convert into them, and then they can, play it from there for free damage and all. But then we have characters like Colleen V-Trigger 1, where she'll just use it, right? And if it gets blocked, that's half the V-Trigger gone right there. Ken V-Trigger 2 is a perfect example. He has to confirm into it, Poor Zeku V-Trigger 2. Falk V-Trigger 2. Oh, man, it's one of the...
Basically unusable.
Right, basically unusable.
Because this looks like an N-tier. Oh, wait, it's not.
Yeah. Hey, it combos into Super, though, don't forget. So...
Oh, great.
Basically, one of the things is that when you have these kind of V-Triggers where you have to fully commit and it goes into a move, most of the time, well, obviously, you have to confirm into it. Otherwise, they're going to be unsafe and you get punished for it. And one of the big things that V-Triggers do as a comeback thing is that it gives you a free attempt to get some easy damage or leave you very plus on your opponent and put him into a sticky situation like Birdie doing his EX Bullhead. And to activate, all of a sudden, boom, he's in a scary spot, +3 or whatever, right?
Yeah, and there are good examples of non-install V-Triggers that are good, like Ibuki's Fuma Shuriken is an example. Like, it's a single use, but it's extremely powerful because it gives you multiple opportunities to open up your opponent. Aegis Reflector, same thing.
Yeah. These are both good on block. They're both good on block, and that's
exactly.
Big
So
deal.
you have an opportunity to mix up your opponent or open them up somehow.
Right.
So that's either like Capcom changes these V triggers so that they're, they give you an opportunity for pressure on block.
Okay.
Or you make it so that they're either safer. For example, like if Zeku or Ken activate their V triggers and you just block them, they're dead. Like they're they're just dead.
Okay.
So they either make them safer, which I can understand it could be pretty crazy for like a DP like move like those V triggers are.
Yeah.
Or you give them an opportunity to just have kind of like a non activation if that makes sense, in the sense that it's just a cancel and it like enables you to use your V trigger without going into the canned animation forcefully. It could be just down and heavy punch, heavy kick, for example.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
That gives you opportunity for pressure, right? But the drawback is that you give up your first activation, right? You give up that first canned activation
because that free screen is pretty important.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. So, yeah, if you have Ken V-Trigger 2, you're saying, for example, if you did, like, down and V-Trigger at the same time, it would just activate, and he won't do the uppercut, and then it starts, and then it's up, right? Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, either Capcom does something like that, or they just really raise the damage. Like, Zeku's V-Trigger 2, the damage is just... It's just horrible, and he doesn't even get a super after. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, especially with the nerfs to the V trigger activation that we mentioned before. It scales as 2 hits. So just
exactly.
not as powerful.
Okay, moving on. Another thing too is Capcom really needs to look at the 2-bar, 3-bar issue of V triggers. There seems to be some serious inconsistency here on like how powerful some of these 2-bar V triggers are. Some of them are just so insane at such a low cost. I think Abigail was one of the easiest examples, man. His V-Trigger 1, man. I still can't believe they did not nerf his double juggle, the charge back hard punch or whatever loop. But at the same time, it's a 2-bar V-Trigger. The character has so much health, right? And it lasts forever. Like, it lasts for Abigail can do so many attempts of that charge punch, and it's so dangerous. And it's just such an efficient V-Trigger because of that. It just doesn't make sense why it's 2-bar. Especially when you compare it to poor Ryu, where it's over by the time you blink. Ibuki and Menat are also another issue. And this is where it gets complex. Because the problem with Ibuki and Menat is that it really came down to the really good players, the pro players, to really make these V-Triggers broken. Because they add so much utility, right? So if you nerf these V-Triggers, let's say, for example, Ibuki and Menat, they nerf them by making these 2-bar V-Triggers 3-bar V-Triggers now. You're kind of hurting the lesser skilled players, in a sense, right? You're hurting these players more than the pro players.
Yeah, I can see that. But I can imagine that, like, one of the biggest problems with, like, Ibuki's or Menat's V-Triggers is that, well, of course, like we said, they're 2 bars, and they're extremely strong for 2 bars. But at the same time, the tools that these characters have are just so, like, they help them open up the opponent so easily. Like, for example, both Ibuki and Menat have an instant overhead, and they can combo after it with their V-Triggers.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you were to look at that and change it somehow, that could bring down the utility of both V-Triggers a lot, right? Because it would be so much harder to open up your opponent.
Right.
So it's not just the V-Triggers in and of themselves, but the fact that they're on such good vessels, if you will. Like, those characters have so many tools that they can use these V-Triggers with.
Yeah. Like, the thing is, like I said, it really comes down to the player, how efficient these V-Triggers are. But if we're just talking about high-end pro play, an Ibuki player being able to use that V-Trigger 2 twice around in some cases is too insane. It's way too much comeback factor. Ibuki's V-Triggers, both Menat and Ibuki, are so good, even on block. Right? It's just crazy that I think Capcom either has to look by, like you said, they have to look at their tool sets, how they're used with it, or simply make them 3-bar V-Triggers. Menat's an easier case because her V-Trigger 2 is not being used right now, so that's could kind of be used as the training wheels for players that can't fully utilize V-Trigger 1 with Menat. But with Ibuki, they gotta take a look at her V-Trigger 1 again, to create something like that. But those two characters are just really good examples of the 2-bar, 3-bar issue. Like I said, we're not just saying that all these 2-bar V-triggers are too strong. There's some 3-bars that are weak, and some 2-bar V-triggers that need to be 3. I think Ryu, for example, his V-trigger 1 should definitely be a 3-bar. That would really help him out.
Well, of course, I mean, by making it 3-bar and then extend the duration and, you know, give it all the benefits of a 3-bar V-trigger, like
V-trigger
canceling
into
fireballs.
Yeah.
So like we don't mean to nerf Ryu, guys. Don't take it like
Of course. But yeah, it's a very, you know, Mir, it's a very V-trigger meta right now for sure. And obviously Capcom is trying to nerf that a little bit. They wouldn't do that if it wasn't for the scaling nerfs, you know. But it's pretty crazy. If we look back in Season 1, man, like Nikali's V-trigger used to be so crazy. Where like this is the most powerful V-trigger in the game, no problem. But now, looking at Season 3, it's just it's like we don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah, we're suffering of a case of V-trigger inflation.
There's so many good ones that are
crazier and crazier V-triggers. I mean, just look at G, man.
Yeah, G. Like, yeah, he's seriously just his V-trigger one is so powerful, you know, and it's really shot the characters at the top. So it's just like, yeah, man.
But don't look at Sagat. We'll just ignore.
Yeah, don't look at Sakura, man. I feel bad for Sakura. But yeah, I really feel like Capcom should take a look at these. Also take a look at the characters, how they convert into these V-triggers. You know, like I said, we were talking about before, Amir, about Balrog's V-trigger 1, how it used to be. It's like one of the craziest robbery V-triggers. But they nerfed Balrog's crouching medium kick target combo, for example. We got this scaling nerf on top of that. They nerfed his tap, which hurt his mix-up a bit. You know, like going after the character's utility hurts their V-triggers as well. It's a big factor.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's many great examples like Urian, same thing. You know, they with the scaling and all the V-trigger nerfs. You know, you basically you kind of want to force the reset just so you can get like all the damage.
And we want
and those are still like totally viable V-triggers.
Yeah,
they're just not as oppressive as they used to be.
Like there's some players that want to be like a hipster and they want to use the other V-trigger, but at least make it viable. Don't. Like, I feel bad for the Jerry players that want to use V-trigger too because they want to be the only ones, but make it viable, man. Make it viable, Capcom. Okay.
Well, that's the reason why they're the only ones.
Yeah. It's so true. Okay, guys, let us know in the comments below what you guys think they should do with V-triggers. Is it fine the way it is, or there's some that need tuning? And what would you guys do for the ones that are super weak that nobody uses? Let us know. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And of course, like the video. It really helps out. And Mir, thanks a lot for joining me with this again. And
no problem, man.
We'll be back at you guys with another discussion video in the future. So, till then, guys, take care.